Hey, what's up guys? So in this video, I want to take a closer look at the radar detector brands themselves. It seems like each company has a slightly different approach as far as how they make radar detectors and maybe even who they're making detectors for. And we definitely see this reflected in their detectors themselves. And so in this video, we're going to take a look at Escort and Uniden and Valentine and Radenso and all the main companies and take a look at kind of the key differences between the companies and then what we see in their detectors too. So starting off with Escort, it seems like the main thing that they're focusing on is making their detectors easy to use. You know, they've got the auto lockouts, they've got Bluetooth to pair it with your phone. A lot of the detectors have Wi-Fi now, even to connect to the cloud for your cloud sharing alerts and automatic updates and stuff. So they seem to be focused more on making detectors that are just kind of plug and play, right? Stick it in the windshield and it takes care of a lot of the things itself. Now, Escort as a company, they've had some issues over the past couple of years, especially getting bought out by different investment firms and parent companies. And so there's been some issues there, which is definitely affected kind of customer service and the relationship with enthusiasts and stuff. And I don't want to get too much into the drama, but there's definitely been some issues as far as the history with Escort. But where they stand today as far as their detectors, again, they're just generally looking for something kind of easy to use and plug and play. They're also branching out into stuff like maybe integrating some dash cams into their radar detectors. They've got some like this. They've got some that used to actually add on to the side of the detector, and now they're actually blending it into some of the detectors too. So they seem to be kind of focusing on some additional stuff besides just a box that beeps. Then moving on to Cobra. Cobra traditionally has been a brand with like really low-end cheapy detectors, honestly kind of garbage detectors with like BS nonsensical marketing, 19 bands and all this crazy stuff. Escort and Cobra actually merged now, Cedar Electronics. They merged the companies. And so now we see a lot of Escort technology being built in to some of Cobra's detectors. Like this is the Dual Pro 360. It's kind of like a repackaged Escort Max 360. And so some of the detectors are getting better. We're also seeing some of the similar stuff. Like here's the Cobra Road Scout. It also has a dash cam built in. So they're kind of working on some things that blend some of the Escort ideology, but Cobra overall is going to be kind of your lower end brand. I'm not a huge fan of things like the RAD 450. We still see poor performance and false alert filtering and stuff on their lower end stuff, but some of their higher end stuff is getting nicer because of the merge with Escort. Now, Escort is a brand I find they generally tend to have more expensive detectors, and then you've got companies like Uniden who are going for less expensive detectors that still offer a ton of performance and features for the money. I find that overall, Uniden seem to really be going for giving you a really good bang for the buck. You know, good performance, good capabilities and features and stuff. They're not going to be quite as refined necessarily sometimes as the Escorts, which have been working on some of these features for a lot longer. Like Escort's auto lockouts lock out signals properly. They're not perfect, but they do a better job than Uniden, who's been introducing the auto lockouts more recently. Nevertheless, for people who are looking for a good bang for the buck, you know, whether it's like the R3, R7, the R8, whatever it is, like Uniden keeps working on things that are really pushing the envelope that are cheaper than Escort, that a lot of times are a better bang for the buck. And that's pretty cool to see. I like seeing more competition like this in the industry. And then speaking of new things, I guess you've got companies like Radenso. They're a smaller company, a newer company, and they make things like the Radenso XP or the Radenso Pro M. Here they were kind of focusing on a lot of the photo radar detection. They've got their new detector, the Radenso DS1, which does stuff like a trick magnetic mount and a special screw you can remove to do all these like custom mounts. They're focusing on things like USB Type-C for power. Like they're doing a lot of really cool stuff to try and do something different and new. I know they're working on Radenso Thea, which is awesome. That's really new and exciting, but they've just had tons of issues with supply chain issues and getting the parts and the FPGAs and stuff. So that's been delayed for, well, years now with no end in sight. But with Radenso, it seems like they're really trying to do something different to separate themselves and something unique and creative. And it may work, it may run into a ton of issues, but I got to appreciate a company which is really trying to do something new. I've also heard with Radenso, talking to different people online, talking to dealers even earlier today, that Radenso's customer service seems to be a lot better than Escort's. I also hear that better than Uniden. Uniden not always great on the customer service front, but Radenso overall, there's always going to be exceptions to everything, but overall I find that Radenso, people say their customer service tends to be better too, so that's also really good to hear. Next, you've got Valentine. So they make the V1. It was the original detector with arrows. Mike Valentine, he seems to be pretty content to like just do his own thing and roll with the V1, and I kind of like it, you know? He makes a really solid detector. He's made like literally one detector for almost 3 decades, and it's pretty solid and reliable at this point. It has since been discontinued and replaced by the V1 Gen 2, which had some initial issues at launch, but those have since been addressed. And we have another detector, and it seems like people are super loyal to the V1s. V1s, you know, they may have been running these for literally multiple decades, and you've got some of those most passionate and enthusiastic people dedicated to the V1s. I think also, in addition to the arrows, one of the smartest things that Mike V did, he's like, man, let's give this thing an open API. Let's give a Bluetooth interface for third-party developers to start creating their own apps. And that's really opened things up to create some additional functionality here. He doesn't seem to be too concerned about doing things like putting GPS, like all the other manufacturers are doing, to make it more plug and play. You know, he's not concerned about like photo radar detection and selling it on Amazon or through third-party dealers. He's like, I'm just going to sell it on my website. I'm doing my own thing, and it works for me, and that's cool. And I'm like, all right, do your thing, you know? So that's the V1 Gen 2. Not necessarily going to be the widest appeal for various reasons, but for people who are super into detectors, this is a really popular option, especially among enthusiasts who are awesome or really happy with playing with a lot of the third-party app options. Then you've got companies like Whistler. They traditionally make kind of lower-end detectors as well. I feel like they get overlooked a lot of times because the performance is going to be lacking relative to the competition, or some of these have issues with like K-band alerts, falsing as KA, and no photo radar detection. Like, they're really focused on making more affordable lower end stuff. That's not really what I'm interested in personally. I like higher performing stuff that's really going to give you good protection, but they make kind of lower end stuff these days, and so they feel like they mostly get overlooked. The CR97 is definitely the top performing one that he currently offers, but I'm sure he's going to keep working on new stuff to keep pushing the envelope. And so Whistler, you won't really see me talking about him too much. I definitely prefer kind of more of the higher end market. Next, there's also Rocky Mountain Radar. They've made a number of different detectors over the years that all advertise scrambling capability that's supposed to scramble police radar and laser and prevent the officer from being able to get your speed. It doesn't work at all. It's a complete scam. They're pretty much some of the biggest scammers in the entire industry. I don't recommend their detectors. They're based, honestly, on low-end hardware, limited functionality, and a bunch of lies and technobabbles about their capabilities. And so, yeah, I don't recommend the Rocky Mountain Radar stuff at all. I do test them and do reviews from time to time, but they're primarily like, hey, here's what they advertise, and here is it not working. So, in general, Rocky Mountain Radar, avoid. There's no reason to get one. And then finally, I guess there's also detectors like the Batman detector. There's random third-party companies. These are like $3 detectors that are sold for like, I don't know, 15, 20, 30, 40 bucks, whatever. They're cheapy, super junky detectors. Now, there's other companies as well that I haven't focused on in this video. There's Stinger. They make kind of special custom installed detectors. They've had some issues with like getting solid, reliable equipment, but super cool things as far as like flat patch antennas and super teeny tiny fiber optic fibers for the laser jammer. So they do some cool stuff, but they've had some reliability issues. There's K40, which traditionally makes kind of overpriced, underperforming equipment. You're both as far as your windshield mounts and your custom installed. You've got Net Radar, who's done like some custom installed radar detectors, like the Net Radar DSP integrates with the ALP. You know, so there's definitely a number of other options that are out there, but I guess I'm focused in this video mostly on windshield mounts and especially the companies who make these different windshield mount detectors. And so in this video, yeah, that's just a quick, try to make it fast for 5 Minute Fridays. I hope I'm making it within 5 minutes. Probably not, but I'm trying. It's just a quick look as far as the different companies. There's definitely way more I can say about any company in particular. But again, this is just kind of like a higher level and relatively simplified look at the different companies. And so I also want to do a series of videos kind of talking about the entire lineup of detectors for these different companies. So the different Escorts, the different Radensos and Valentines, I guess 2 Valentines and Unidens, etc. And so I'm going to be doing a series on those as well. But this is just a look as far as the different companies. And so, yeah, that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you're doing well, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.